Welcome back, folks, to another exciting episode of the Red Shirt Interviews, that show where we get really cool and awesome people to talk to us.
And you complain that we haven't figured out a permanent name.
That's
but
right.
We keep using this one.
That's right. I'm your host, Lazdi, the pseudo-Kiwi.
And I'm the illustrious Patrick M.
And on this episode, we have a very special guest with us, a man who has a very storied history, both acting and directing, Mr. Ryan T. Husk. Thanks, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. And for the record, I think Red Shirt Geeks is a great name, personally. So no reason to look for something new. I think it's working for you.
There you go.
I told you that was going to work.
Sure you did.
Mind you, it took us far too long to actually settle on a name. But thank you. I think it's worked out pretty well. I think everybody kind of identifies with who and what a red shirt is. So
and a geek.
That's right. You know, there's no mistaking. And actually, you can't see it, but on the back of my shirt, there's a target. So
it's probably a good thing we can't see it.
It's probably, yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be the host of this show for very long. Anyways, without too much ado, let's talk about Ryan. You've had quite a history in acting, in the industry, not just acting but also directing and such like that. You know, why don't you talk to us first of all how you got into the industry? Because obviously you've got quite a few acting credits. You know, where did you get kind of started?
Well, I fell into acting completely by accident, honestly. I moved to Los Angeles as a musician, and I was just taking music classes to warm up and to keep practice and improve my craft at a local community college. One of my classes got canceled, and a girl in my singing class, tried to get me to watch her theater class. And I said, oh, no, thanks, I'm not an actor. And she said, oh, it's fun. You'll just watch us screw around. You'll have fun. And she literally grabbed me by the wrist and forced me. Now, of course, to this day, she can't buy her own lunch around me because thank God she did that. She dragged me into the class, and I was just supposed to watch. The theater teacher forced me to participate. She was a very intimidating lady. And so turns out it was fun. So I came back the next day, and I ended up taking the class and taking the next class, and it kind of went from there.
Wow. Patrick, you've actually gone through and looked at the list of credits and everything. It's obviously as long as my arm. You have been in more things than I could probably think I've watched recently. Obviously, for us being Star Trek nerds, well, he's the Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
You have been involved in a number of Star Trek projects. There's the actual,
including the Abrams reboots.
Yeah, the Abrams reboots you've appeared in. One of my personal favorites that it looks like you've been in is actually G.I. Joe.
Oh man, that was so fun. That was just so much fun.
It looks like you've just had quite a variety of roles. Do you purposely look for different kinds, or is it just a matter of, hey, I'm an actor, I'm in LA, I've got a living to make, let's do what we can to do, or do you really kind of try to plan out the parts you look for?
Well, at first it started off with me just taking whatever it was, because like I said, I started acting maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and then started actually taking it seriously maybe 6 years ago. So at first I was just doing little background gigs here and there, or little short films or student films, and I was just enjoying the whole process of, wow, check it out, I'm on TV, or I'm on the big screen, or there's a camera in front of me. What do I do? So at first it was just fun, and then I kind of lucked out and got onto Star Trek, I think in 2009, and I got onto G.I. Joe, I think in 2009, and The Deadliest Warrior, which was just unbelievable fun. And next thing you know, I'm like a kid, a nerd in a candy shop, because I'm doing all, I grew up as a big nerd, I love Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Trek more, though. And so
don't roll your eyes at the guest.
I got to roll a little.
So really it was like, then it was just thrilling to be able to do the really fun parts. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I slowly began to more actively seek out the more fun parts. Or if something was, say, like just a background job or a featured job or a one-line job, if it was a fun job like Star Trek or G.I. Joe or Deadliest Warrior or the comedy skits on Conan O'Brien, things like that, then I would sacrifice how big the role is for how much fun I'm having, or how big the pay is for how much fun I'm having. Whereas if it was low pay or not a big role and it wasn't a very exciting job, then I really wouldn't actively seek it out as much, you know.
Fair enough. Well, we've talked to quite a number of people, and we've heard so many different stories from different set stories, different industry stories, different. We actually had our last guest was is a very talented actor by the name of John Mangus, who does a number of things for Lucasfilm. Does a lot of the promotional work with Darth Maul, and also has worked on. We talked to him about Jurassic World. And what was really, and he was telling us a great story about working with Matthew McConaughey on a new movie called The Free State of Jones. And what was really kind of cool is that when we talk to people, we don't just kind of say, oh, what did you do? How did you get involved with this project? We'd like to kind of get into the meat of it and say, what was it like for you as an actor or whatever role you were doing, being behind the scenes and working with some people who are large in the industry. And what I want to know, one of the things I'd like to know is that we're kind of split on the whole Abrams Star Trek movies. We both kind of are a little bit on the either side of the aisle for the first one, but we're both kind of equally on the same side for Star Trek Into Darkness. What was it like being in the environment where everything was spit polished new? I mean, a lot of people refer to the bridge of the New Enterprise as the Apple Store in space.
But when you can see it.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, when you can see it beyond the lens flares. But what is it like to be in an environment where everything is so guarded, because everything is, they're trying to protect a brand new intellectual property, with Abrams taking over the franchise at that point. What was it like for you to be involved in that?
Well, that sounds like a two-parter question, and so I'll answer both with Star Trek. Just to keep it all
because
in
Star
mind.
Trek.
When I was working on Into Darkness, maybe 3 years ago or something like that, we were shooting at a place called the Getty Center in Los Angeles, which is like a big free museum at the top of the hills in between like northern LA and LA proper.
All right.
And it's only the second movie that's ever been shot there. But there was a point where, I'm a Starfleet officer at Starfleet headquarters. That was all the Starfleet headquarters shoot was happening at the Getty Center. And I'm wearing my army green suit, as a Starfleet officer and walking around doing all my stuff. And there was a scene that we were doing where I was just supposed to kind of walk by when Spock and Kirk go into the turbo lift. And the funny part was that every time the scene would end, I would end at this certain spot, which happened to be in between where Kirk and Spock were standing and where JJ was standing. And so every time the scene would end, JJ would come to where I was standing, and Spock and Kirk would come to where I was standing, and they would discuss the scene. And it just felt really kind of surreal to be standing there. And all of a sudden, I'm in a 4-person circle with J.J. Abrams and Kirk and Spock. Of course, I've got nothing to do with the conversation, but that's just where they converged. And I was just kind of sitting there like a nerd, just going, So,
basking.
How you doing?
I liked what you did there. That was nice. So that was pretty cool. So yes, it is. It's more like you get it in little moments. You usually get those moments afterwards when you're driving home and you go, holy, I just did whatever with whomever. And to answer the second part of that, the set of Star Trek, they are super secretive. In the 2009 movie, when we were shooting at Paramount, they actually, first of all, they don't even tell you what the movie's about. You can figure, they don't say that it's for Star Trek. They call it like, Red Star Lights or something. They just made something up, but I could figure it out, of course, because I'm a Star Trek nerd. When they're saying like a futuristic sci-fi military character, I'm like, I could play that. That sounds like Star Trek to me,
Yeah.
And so when we're dressed up in the outfit, outfits. When we finally found out was when they were doing they're trying on the costumes and they were tailoring it to us and stuff. And I'm putting it on, and on the outfits, the red shirts, that weren't really red, the new 2009 ones, there was the little Star Trek A's all over it. The little
the chevron.
Exactly. So that was the confirmation there. And then when we were filming, they actually had us, they would put us into this, to go from one studio to the next, they would put us into this shuttle wearing full body hoods, completely covering us, just in case there were helicopters flying above us that wanted to see what the new uniforms looked like. Cell phones were confiscated at all times, no cell phones. I mean, it was just like they went to the greatest of lengths to make sure that nobody could see us and that we couldn't take any pictures or give out any information.
I remember seeing, it was recently, I was watching a series on Stars called The Chair, and it was Zachary Quinto. It was a project where he basically got behind a couple of different filmmakers, and they all both had the opportunity to film the same script. And as part of some of the interviews and talks about during that series, he talked about his work on Star Trek, the first time he had played Spock. And actually what you just said confirmed exactly what he said. He said the first day that they shot with him with his makeup on and in uniform on, somebody caught a photo of him walking, and at the very next day, basically after that, everybody started getting shuttled around in covered carts and wearing big hooded outfits so that nobody could see the outfits and everything. So it's a lot of people wonder why they go to why the studios go to such great lengths to protect the assets. And one thing is, and as a filmmaker yourself, I'm sure you can appreciate this, you want to hold off as much as you can till the last minute because you don't want people kind of getting too much. You want to feed them the whole meal in one sitting. You can, like with the teasers and trailers, you can kind of give them a taste of what to expect, because sometimes, and a lot of times, some of the footage never shows up in the finished product anyways. So you can kind of get away with that. You give them little tidbits to keep them chomping at the bit for it, but you ultimately you want to control how they receive the final product. And obviously you've seen that yourself as an actor, but also you're a filmmaker as well. One of the projects that we had talked with our other guest Kat Sky about was The Fifth Passenger. We talked about the whole, what it was like to be on a set with, some of these people that we'd all kind of grown up with in our, our favorite series. And, I was like, what's it like? What was it like having seen all these people run around? She says, well, first of all, and she mentioned your name. It says, first of all, Ryan brought me in on this project and said, this is, you're going to really enjoy this. I think you'll be great for your Star Trek fan. We've got Star Trek actors in it. Come and help us out. And it was sort of this, I was like, so I asked her, I said, what was it like being on this set? And I said, is it kind of a lot of people running around? Is it really busy like a film set? She says, no, actually it was a rather smaller, intimate set, but it was really kind of had a great vibe. So, when you're doing these things and you're kind of doing the director role, do you find that you are almost caught up in the moment yourself? You're caught up in the atmosphere. You're working with people that you grew up watching on TV. Do you find that you're kind of having to immerse yourself in the environment just to keep your head straight?
Well, I rarely direct. I produce more and act more, but definitely you're definitely right that you kind of have to. I mean, when you're working, you don't really think about it, because if you're thinking about who you're with, and you're not really doing your job, unless it's with respects to how they need to be treated and what they want and what temperature they want their root beer or whatever. You know what I mean? But there were a couple moments. When I think it was when we did the table read, and I was driving home, and it only hit me then, where I was like, wow, that's so funny. A year ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or that nerdy 16-year-old kid, you would have never guessed that I'd be sitting in a room with the people that I grew up watching, like on Star Trek Voyager, on Star Trek Next Generation, and it's just, and that's kind of when it hits you, is when you look back to before this was a reality, because when you're in it, you're so focused on just doing the job and making sure everything's going well, making sure you're doing your part, just working, making it happen. But there are definitely those moments where you go, wow, I would have never guessed, sitting there watching Counselor Troy saying, I sense he's angry, Captain, that she would actually be sitting next to me, sassing me, about the script or whatever,
Yeah, actually.
Sassy, by the way.
That was something we talked about as well, because Marina Sirtis was one of my favorite actors on TNG and the following TNG-based movies. And I thought to myself, one of our first guests, actually our very first guest on our show, was Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, he's great.
And oh my, I mean, it took a little bit to get over being starstruck, because you're having a conversation with somebody that, wow, your work inspired me to imagine what it's like. And as you say, you're kind of in the same situation. You grew up watching these people on TV. There was Tim Russ. There's Armin Shimmerman. There is Marina Sirtis, and one of my personal favorites, a lesser known personal favorites, Doug Jones. And a lot of people don't, that guy just looks like he has way too much fun in anything he does. Because I fell in love with his work from Hellboy. And it's like you said, it's an experience, and you can't believe that you're working with these people and saying, wow, I have an opportunity not only just to work professionally, but sit around and have a good conversation with these people. We were actually having a discussion earlier on today about what it's like to be on a movie set, and I had found out that Patrick, incidentally, has not seen The Last Samurai.
Which is a movie he actually was the first movie he was ever on the set of.
Yeah, it was the first movie I was on the set of.
Really?
It was because it was filmed in New Zealand, where I was living at the time, and I remember having a similar kind of experience. It was the second or third last day of shooting, and I'm having lunch. A friend of mine who was the special effects supervisor had invited me on set, so we're sitting there at lunchtime, all sitting around the craft services table, and just having a meal together. And I'm sitting next to Jeff, and we're talking about things. And next thing I know, right across from me sits Ed Zwick, the director. Right next to him sits Tom Cruise. Next to him sits Billy Connolly.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, what did I just step into? This is too surreal. And sitting around and having a meal and a conversation with these guys, because they're not talking about what's going on with the production. They're talking about what's going on, in their lives, and having a normal lunchtime conversation. To be able to do that was a lot of fun. For me, we look at these projects that not only yourself are involved in, but a lot of other people that we like to talk to and deal with and work with. You did Fifth Passenger, and now you're doing Blade of Honor, and the teaser trailer for that came out just recently, and it kind of got our appetites whetted a little bit. Again, you brought in some great actors. Again, some more Star Trek alumni. Tell us a little bit about the project.
I would love to. First, I just want to touch on a couple things that you mentioned a minute ago. When you mentioned Doug Jones looks like he's having way too much fun.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. He's definitely the nicest guy I've met since moving to LA. He's my favorite person in the world. And I think every single set should have Doug Jones on it. And if there are no roles for him to play, just have him come visit the set so that he could just sprinkle happiness on everybody in the set. Like when he comes to visit a set, everybody looks like they just saw Santa Claus. Their big smiles are just following him along. I mean, he really is the nicest man you could ever meet, and he's extremely talented. So you do want him on every set, and he is having way too much fun. Even if he's just hanging out at a diner in North Hollywood with me, or playing at Target, or being Hellboy, or I'm sorry, Abe Sapien, or Silver Surfer, whatever. He's just a barrel of laughs. And obviously Tim Russ, he's in Fifth Passenger and Blade of Honor with us, or with me. Tim Russ is the kind of guy, he's just like, he's so much fun to work with because he's so easygoing, yet he takes his craft so seriously. Like, he comes in, and you can't help but half expect that if somebody's having this much fun, that they're not really taking it seriously. But as soon as we do a rehearsal or our first take, they just like snap, and they're super focused. And so he's so easy to work with. He's so friendly and great to talk to. Yet, I'm ashamed to admit it, I was actually surprised at how good of an actor he was on Fifth Passenger. I should have known, but I hadn't seen him in too many things other than Star Trek and Spaceballs. And when I saw him, I was like, damn, this guy can really act. What a great actor. So moving on to Blade of Honor, Tim Russ obviously just was amazing for us in Blade of Honor. So was Anna Akana, James Kyson from Heroes.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, I was like, who's that? I go, that's Ando from Heroes.
He is just such a great guy, too. He's so friendly, and he's kind of like a modern-day hippie. But he's another one of those guys where it doesn't matter how relaxed and chill he is and friendly and whatever. As soon as the camera, that red light flashes on the camera, he's ready to go. And he nails it. And I would cast him for anything that he's fit for because he's great.
I saw also that you guys. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I saw also that you've got Brandon Stacy on the cast as well. And for those of you watching who don't know who Brandon is, he actually plays Spock on Star Trek: New Voyages, and obviously a big fan of his work. So obviously you haven't just taken a bunch of Star Trek alums, from the canon series, if you like, but you also brought in a really good mix of very talented people. And from what you've been telling us, it's been a fantastic experience. What can you tell us about the story itself? I mean, what is Blade of Honor really trying to tell the audience?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that it is the brainchild of Mark Edward Lewis, who is our director and the writer of the project, and it was his personal call to bring on Brandon Stacy because he also directed the most recent episode of Star Trek: New Voyages, which was called Mindsifter. He's also doing the next one. So he made a great call with Brandon Stacy, and he did a great job writing this series. And really, what it's about is it's kind of like two races at war. I don't know if you've ever seen Enemy Mine.
Yes.
But I tell people that this is a blend between Enemy Mine and Battlestar Galactica. And, anybody that's seen those two can really get a feel for it. Really what it is, it's two warring factions. There's a main character, Irina Kartadis. She's a lieutenant. She's a fighter pilot. She's kind of like a Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica type character. But as she, battles the bad guys, she starts to find out that this warrior monster race is less of an enemy and less of a monster as what she's kind of been told. So there's a lot of political intrigue and plot twists and that kind of stuff. And some of them actually share the same religion that she does, because there are multiple religions on their home planet, as well as the bad guys, the Kalinar. So she's kind of starting to get caught up in, should she follow her military duty? Should she avenge the deaths of most of the population of her home planet? Because are actually losing this battle, this war. And so she's trying to destroy the alien race, but the more she gets stranded on their planet, the more she gets to know them, just like on Enemy Mine, the more she starts to realize maybe these guys are less of an enemy and there's more of a man behind the curtain that's going on, if that makes sense.
It does, and right. It's I hate to draw a comparison, but it's almost kind of an X-Files-esque circumstance where you have people working specifically for one side towards a specific goal. You have another side that is essentially opposing that, but you also have another third party, aka the Man in Black or the Smoking Man, um, um, that is trying to manipulate the situation to their own advantage. So it sounds like a really interesting story. I mean, we've seen the trailer for it, the teaser that was released for it, and very excited to see this project. When do you actually expect it to premiere?
We'll be doing that. It'll definitely be at the end of this year or towards the end of the year. We've still got a few more things to iron out before we shoot out the bulk of it. Actually, which reminds me of what I want to tell you. Another thing is that our casting is not quite done yet. That's one of the things that we still have to finish. And I can't really say who we're going after, but there's going to be another very recognizable face in sci-fi lore.
Nice.
That will be added to the cast if we have our way. So we're really looking forward to that. Then once we're fully cast and we've got all our P's and Q's taken care of, and we're also making adjustments to the script, then we'll start shooting the bulk of it in earnest. And I'm really looking forward to that because Tim Russ's character is kind of like an Obi-Wan Kenobi type character where he's like half Shaolin monk, half airbender, half warrior. You know what I mean? I guess that's thirds, but.
I tell you, well, I tell you that's.
Of course, more than one person. But.
That's right, and hey, let's not forget that he did an excellent job just recently, back in May, trolling all the Star Wars fans with his May the 4th video. I couldn't stop laughing. He trolled Star Wars fans so badly with.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe.
And had I seen that,
Yeah.
I would have. Okay.
Yeah, I get around.
That was.
I tend to have my head buried in the things going on, and Patrick tends to focus on the more production side of things for his show and whatnot. So I tend to come to him with a lot of things like, "Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
Oh,
Have you seen this?"
maybe I should look at that.
Oh, perhaps I should look at that. I'm like, yes, you need to stop what you're doing right now and look at this. So obviously we're very much looking forward to Blade of Honor when it comes out, and also any news along the way that as you're able to share, as you guys are able to share with us. Again, looking really forward to it. Ryan, thank you so much. It has been fantastic talking to you. You've given, like all of our guests, you have given us a fantastic insight as to what it is that you're passionate about, and in turn, it allows us to pass that on to the people who watch our show and get excited about it as well. So again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, I just have two things to say to that. One is come check us out, Blade of Honor on Facebook. Just type in Blade of Honor, and that'll come up, and you'll get all the information you need. Really, anything that's Star Trek or sci-fi related on my IMDb, you can just type that into Facebook, and it'll direct you to the right thing, whether it's Star Trek Renegades or Horizon or any of the things that are going on. You can find those on Facebook.
Thank you so much for actually mentioning that, and that's something I had made a note I wanted to talk about just briefly before we let you go. Was Tommy Kraft. I've spoken.
He's a genius.
Yeah, I've spoken to him before they did Prelude to Axanar, and I know that you appeared in that as well, and
Also self-produced, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember talking to this young guy and thinking, there's something good, there's something big going to come out of this. And of course, I saw that he had done some digital compositing for Axanar. But then I sat and talked to him about what was going on with Horizon, and that looks like an amazing project, because not just because it looks like an interesting story about being Star Trek during the Romulan War, but also what really kind of fascinated with me is that this young guy took a passion for Trek and used it as a way to be able to lift himself into a position where he could contribute to the community, and it just looks amazing.
Well, another thing about Tommy Kraft is not just that Horizon looks amazing, but that Tommy's he's just a damn prodigy. I mean, the guy's like an hour out of Detroit. Who shoots anything in Detroit? And he's something like 23 or 24. He's cutting his own uniforms just because he said, well, I might as well just try it, see if I can do it. He's doing everything himself, and it's the age that we live in now is where somebody can just make a movie by themselves. Now, it's probably not going to be a good movie unless you're somebody that's as good at it as Tommy Kraft is, but still, we do have those opportunities now. So I'm glad you did mention that, because he's great, and he's great to work with, and I got to play a Romulan villain in that movie, which was loads of fun.
Seeing the latest trailer, I think there was actually a teaser that came out not long ago. Just seeing that got me excited for the project again, and I can't wait to
Cool.
can't wait to see it, and we can't wait to see you in it as well. So again, thank you very much, Ryan, for being on the show with us. We hope to get to talk to you again soon. And for all of you out there, obviously, make sure you check out Blade of Honor on Facebook and anything else that they've done, because it's amazing work, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to come join anything that has anything to do with geekdom. So thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime.
You're welcome, sir. And just so you know, for this episode, you are our honorary red shirt. So
nice. I've got like 6 red shirts in my closet.
There you go.
This has been the Red Shirt Interviews. Thank you again, Ryan. Our guest tonight has been Ryan T. Husk. Please make sure you check them out on Facebook and on their website and everywhere they are, so that you can take part and join this fantastic project. I'm Laz D, the Pseudo Kiwi.
And I'm the illustrious Patrick M.
And may your phasers be fully charged. See you, folks.